Hello there, friends. This is Spencer Michaud, and today we're going to be doing a little Sagittarius season Q&A session. Hope that you're doing well out there. Today on this Friday afternoon, it's a little rainy here in southeastern Michigan, but let me know how things are going where you're at, and let me know where you're stopping in from, and if you have any questions today. I'm just kind of doing a free-form session. If you have questions about your chart, about astrology in general, if you want to learn something about the planets, if you have some questions about sports or gardening or whatever, we're just going to hang out for a little bit and have a good time. Tracy is here, tuning in from West Sussex in the UK. Nice to see you, Tracy. Hope you and the hedgehogs are doing well over there. Dawn is stopping in from Mobile, Alabama. Hello, Dawn. Nice to see you, friend. Welcome. Tatiana's Spiritual Toolbox. Hello, Tatiana. How you doing? Long time no see. Nice to see you. Cold and rainy in Victoria. Yes, I joined Tatiana and my other friend Dulcie with their Astrology Victoria group a few years back now. Oh my goodness, time is flying. But I did my I believe I did my fixed star talk with that organization. You can find that on my YouTube channel. Tatiana is a great astrologer, as well as my friend Dulcie, so check them out over there. Really great group, really nice folks. Laura Elizabeth is here. Hello from Vancouver, USA. Nice to see you, Laura Elizabeth. Hope you're doing well today. Tarja is here from Finland. Hello, Tarja. Everybody is stopping in from the Northern Europe here. I love it. Nice to see you representing. Tatiana says, doing great. Nice to see you. All right, Tatiana. Got my Virgos in the chat today. I believe, Tatiana, you have some Sag influence in your chart too, right? If I'm not mistaken, some Virgo Sagittarius things. My brain's a little fuzzy, but we'll talk some Sagittarius stuff today. Tracy says, we are well. With the little hedgehogs there. It's very cold here. Yeah, it was cold here this week, earlier in the week, but it is starting to warm up a little bit, and it's rainy. So today's just kind of a dreary, rainy, early December day here in Michigan of the United States. But, you know, we need the hoses to unfreeze for a little bit so that I can put them in the basement. Oh boy. Oh yes, Tatiana says it was awesome. This was with the talk. Yes, that talk was fun. That talk was a lot of fun. Really enjoyed joining you folks out there. So friends, a couple things before we just kind of dive in today. If you have a question about astrology, about your chart, about whatever's going on in your life, if you want to share stories, if you want to talk about things and get some maybe an outside perspective on something, put question in all caps in front of it in the chat box, and that'll help me see that it's a question. I always love hearing your observations as well, but if there's something that you want me to address specifically, that can help me see it. A couple other announcements before we dive into that as well. I am having a Sagittarius season sale. We did have a big holiday sale that has now since passed, but if you missed out on that and you still want to get the Decans of Sagittarius webinar, it's 20% off right now. So you can check that out at the store at spencermichaud.com. I'm also available for readings for the holiday season if you need to work through maybe some of the stressors of meeting up with family and friends. I know it can be a wonderful time. It could also be kind of a challenging time around this time of year as well. If you'd do me a huge favor and hit the like button on this video here today, that would go a long way to getting the algorithm pleased with us today. And if you're new, please subscribe. This is something we do every week for the most part. We do new moons and full moons. We do monthly astrology. We do question and answer things. And every once in a while, we do some other topical things where we do special topics and things like that as well. So please, if you are new here, it will be lovely for you to join us every week. You can also sign up for my newsletter, Spencer Michaud Astrology, in the description of this video. And then when you can know when we're going live every week. And please check out my partner, Tanya Andrews, and her magical business, Third Coast Mojo. She works really hard doing those magical offerings. She's got some new soaps. There is a Venus and Libra soap. If you're trying to capture a little bit of that Venus and Libra energy before it moves into Scorpio on Monday, you could bathe yourself with it even when it's lost a little dignity. but yeah, she does great work and is worth supporting. So appreciate all of you. If you want to make a gift to the channel today, there's a little $sign in the chat box. It's called a super sticker or a super chat, and it really goes a long way to helping me to keep the lights on and to help me free up time to be able to do research and do all of those things. So I appreciate all of those generous donations here as well. Carol from Mass is here, says grateful member, Cap Rising Club. Yes, my Capricorn risings are here today. I love it. I think 75 to 80% of my audience is Cap risings, but I love it. There's a nice balancing energy when you have a lot of Cancer energy in your chart, and sometimes having having some of your planets placed in someone's seventh house can be a nice balancing energy for both parties. So my partner is a Capricorn rising, and she helps me to get practical when I'm getting a little emotional, and sometimes I help her with her feelings, and so on and so forth. These are always beautiful dichotomies in a chart that can be complementary as well. Okay, so I think those are our announcements here. Happy Mercury and Capricorn season. Earlier today, Mercury moved out of its exile in Sagittarius and into Capricorn. So we may be feeling a little bit more grounded, a little bit more earthy. Maybe our minds are a little bit slower, potentially, which is not always a bad thing. Sometimes we need to be able to just dig into something and then get our hands dirty with our ideas rather than just kind of moving quickly on them. We are going to be seeing Mercury stationing retrograde this month and going back into the last degrees of Sagittarius. So that's something to keep in mind. As we are speaking, Mercury is making a sextile to its host Saturn. So this is a nice day to think of things in a sober, clear fashion, to really have some practical thinking around things. This can really be a boon and a boost for your Gemini and Virgo houses and topics as well. So those are some things that are going on. So yeah, feel free to put questions in the chat today if you are wanting to see what's going on for you in your life. I'm just going to pull the chart up so we can just see what's going on here. How are your sports teams doing? I am a Green Bay Packers fan, and the young kids in Green Bay are starting to come together. My guy Jordan Love is starting to play a little bit better, and I think I'm officially off the tank, as they like to call it. Sometimes in sports, when your team's not doing good and you want a better future, you almost root for them to lose so that they get a better draft pick and better players in the future. But that dream has died for the Packers, and they may actually make the playoffs this year. We'll see. So that is something that I've been looking at as far as my sports teams are going. Let's see, checking in with the chat here. Tracy says, I'm a Cancer Sun and a Libra rising, and I think I need to get some of Tanya's soap. Yes, Tracy, that would be it's good stuff. Me and her, well, she mostly made it, but I helped. I kind of got in the way making it. I wanted to help, and I helped with the glitter and the herbs and things of that nature. It was a little bit of a team effort, mostly Tanya, but there is some of both of us within it. It's really good stuff. I've been using it in the shower myself, and there is Mercury soap, there's Venus soap. I believe there's going to be a Jupiter and Sagittarius one coming out pretty soon too, so keep your eyes peeled for that, Tracy. Stella Rendition is here. It says, hi Spencer, rough couple of weeks but made it through. Yeah, I hear you, Stella. I've been dealing with Venus on the south node myself, mostly with my vehicle. My vehicle is pretty smashed up and about to be towed away pretty soon. So it's a car I've had for about 15 years, and it was a gift from my mother who has since passed. So a lot of emotions and feelings about changes in our circumstances, especially when it relates to mobility and freedom. So I've been talking on the channel about potentially having to lose something important to us that we loved to be able to bring about balance and restore harmony to a situation. So tell me some stories, if there was anything that you all had to maybe let go of while Venus was hanging out with the South Node in this last week or two. That's definitely been part of the story for me, for sure. The good news, I guess, on that is that the vehicle itself just to give an example of this, it kind of been sitting in the driveway for a long time. I work from home and I don't really go that many places anymore. So it was kind of just taking up space and having to pay for the insurance and stuff. So maybe we're freeing up those resources to be directed in a different direction. So, things always balance themselves out on some way or another. Julene is here. Hi, Spencer. Holy moly. You could say that again. Feeling much more at ease mentally today as a Mercury ruled person. Oh, good, Julene. Yeah, Julene, I believe you're a Gemini rising? Gemini rising or Gemini sun? Julene? I can't remember which one off the top of my head. But yes, everybody that has Gemini and Virgo placements is probably breathing a sigh of relief today. I know that I have a Virgo stellium and I have Venus in Gemini, so Mercury is probably, stabilizing things a little bit there today as well. So I'm with you, Julene, and go Cardinals, right? Tatiana says, "What is your perspective on a Neptune to natal Sun opposition?" What's my perspective on a Neptune to natal Sun opposition? Okay, so Tatiana, would you be comfortable if I were to share your chart? I think I have it, if I'm remembering this correctly. If not, that's okay. I know we've got a little bit of a delay. It's about a 20 or 30 second delay, and I can speak to it a little bit more ambiguously if you want, but if you want me to put your chart up there, I can as well, and then I can speak specifically to that. I would say that just in general terms, a Neptune-Sun opposition can be a little bit confusing. I think that sometimes that it might be dissolving. I really think of Neptune as a solvent on some level. I have talked about on this channel in the past about the way that Robert Schmidt describes Neptune, that I find a lot of recognition within, where he talks about it as a transcendental moon that is sort of about returning to the hermetic one thing or universal substance. Whereas okay, so Tatiana says I can bring her chart up. Always want to ask permission if you know someone, and because not everyone is comfortable sharing their charts and things of that nature. So you want to make sure that you are you're asking that permission, because it's always good practice, especially when you're doing things in public here. I'm gonna see if I can find this here. Tatiana. There she is. Tatiana Hassan. There we go. Okay, so what Tatiana is asking about is this Neptune opposition here with her Virgo sun. There were some themes in Tatiana's chart where she has the sun conjoined the North Node in the third decan of Virgo. And there's a lot of themes in that decan about passing on a legacy and wanting to, have something that will live beyond you. So when we have this dissolving influence like Neptune, two things can happen. Oftentimes our how will be challenged. Okay, so if we have the how challenged, a lot of times Virgo gets very fixated on the method and how to organize a project or something of that nature. Pisces, on the other hand, is, in my experience, much more concerned with the why. Okay, like the essence that is animating that process. And with not only with Neptune opposing these planets, but with Saturn opposing these planets, oftentimes there's some blockages to the way that we have done things in the past, and we have to get clear about our why before we can understand which method would be most effective moving forward. So one of the things that Neptune, especially opposing a third decan Virgo sun, could be is there could be a little bit of a dissolving of a sense of our purpose and reality about what legacy we want to pass on. There could be a little bit confusion around it potentially, which could be a little bit disorientating. I think disorientation is something that could happen. And especially because the sun is associated with a sense of vitality and identity, there could also be some kind of draining influence as far as your own personal vitality. In your case, Tatiana, since I was remembering this chart correctly, you're Sag rising. I was thinking the Sag and the Virgo placements here with that Virgo stellium. With the Sun opposite Neptune in those houses, maybe there's a home situation or a family situation or a living situation that is draining vitality from your career or from your identity as a professional or something of that nature. And that could be changing the type of legacy that you want to pass on or the type of method that you're using to be able to move forward with that goal or that identification factor. So I hope that's helpful for you, Tatiana. I've been having Neptune opposing my Saturn and Mars, so I get it. It is a little bit of I feel like I'm wading out into the deep ocean right now. I think sometimes it feels like we are trying to find an island or an oasis, solid ground to put our feet on. And right now that doesn't feel like it totally exists. And it feels like we're just kind of treading water on some level. At least that's been my experience. So maybe you can share your experience and see if that's been something that's been coming up for you. But I think at the end of the day, the way to deal with this is to oftentimes getting an outside perspective can be really helpful. Neptune can be, they talk about Neptune as illusion and things of that nature, but if you think about those planets and think about the things that were discovered around those planets' discovery, when we are searching for meaning, we have things like anesthesia. We have things like substances that will alter our states of consciousness. So maybe there's something like that going on in your life as well, where there's just a lot of altered states of consciousness that could be a little bit disorientating as well, because Virgo tends to be attracted to the reality of a situation rather than maybe the intricacies that permeate in between it. That doesn't mean a Virgo person can't be spiritual. It just means that sometimes they can have more of a focus on the practical day-to-day. There's a spirit or a deity that I associate with Virgo. I believe the name is Estrella. And she was a goddess that came to Earth to teach people the physical rules of incarnation. She got a little bit disappointed with humanity and wanted to leave again and go back to the stars. So that's one of the things that Virgo folks can do really well, is teaching people some of the limitations that we have to work through to be able to manifest on this physical plane, which is a little bit slower than the spiritual one sometimes. Okay, good question, Tatiana. All right, so I'm just going back in time here. I'm going to go back here because as I was talking about Tatiana's chart, we have some more comments and questions. Stella says, my sports teams are doing the worst, and I'm hoping for some good picks next year. Okay, Stella, you have to tell me what team you're a fan of, because I've been a fan of some bad teams in the past, and looking forward to the draft was actually somewhat exciting. The worst position you can be as a sports franchise is mediocre, because you're just kind of on the treadmill. You either want to be really good or really bad, because then you have the expectation of getting a transcendent player that could change your franchise's fortunes. So I'll be curious to which team you're rooting for. Julene says, that's all we can do as Cardinal fans at this point. Yeah, Julene is in that boat too. Jolene's Cardinals are doing... They're not so good this year because they had a lot of injuries. They had a young team. They were clearing payroll, but they might be getting a really high draft pick. And as it stands right now, if they're going to keep their quarterback, who's very expensive and pretty talented actually, but has had middling results, I'm telling you, Julene, go do your research on this guy. His name's Marvin Harrison Jr. He's a wide receiver for Ohio State, and he is a transcendent wide receiver. He's probably the next great wide receiver in the NFL. And you pair him up with Kyler and all those other dudes up there, and it's going to be pretty exciting. A lot of people are comparing him to Larry Fitzgerald. So if you remember how good Larry was for the Cardinals, so maybe that'll give you a little bit of hope, Julene. Tracy Gorman is here. Says, hello, lovelies. This Leo Sun, Libra Rising, Gemini Moon is happy to catch you live. Oh, I'm happy you're here, Tracy. Thank you for stopping by today. I love the little kitty emoji. Devin is here. What's up, Devin? Go Bucks, Spencer. Yes. Tough loss to Chicago. Yes. But overall, the record looks good. Yeah. In addition to being a fan of the Green Bay Packers, I love the Milwaukee Bucks too, and they've been having an interesting beginning of the season. They made a big trade for superstar Damian Lillard, and they've been trying to figure out how to coexist with Giannis and Damian Lillard. It's still a work in progress, is what I will say, but they still have a pretty good record. And if they do figure it out, they are going to be a problem for the rest of the league. So I hope for my sake and for Devin's sake that Lillard has some success with Milwaukee, because if he can't be with the Blazers, we want him to have some success with the Bucks, right? Yes. Julene says, Gemini rising. Yes, Sun, North Node, Mercury, and Jupiter. So a bit of Gemini here, right, Julene? You got the Gemini going. So you're probably feeling a little bit of relief with Mercury's condition improving. But the only challenge with that is Mercury's moved into your 8th house now. So maybe a focus on resources of a partner, potentially focus on if there was anything that happened, like a death in the family or anything. There could be like something going on with like an inheritance questions, or could be tax stuff going on. All of those things are 8th house topics, working through debt, stuff like that. So, and keep in mind, friends, the topics that come up now with Mercury moving into Capricorn, they're going to be up for review. All right, so they're going to be up for review in the next couple weeks. Capricorn Mercury, the first decan of Capricorn, tends to weigh the advantages and disadvantages of a physical place or goal that you want to achieve. So what I will suggest for Mercury moving into Capricorn now is you might not just have all the information. I would say it's good to weigh your pros and cons, but keep in mind that there might be some more pieces of the puzzle that need to be revealed, and we have to practice our patience. This is Mercury in a Saturn sign now. Because it is in a pretty harmonious relationship with its host Saturn, Saturn's in a decan that is asking us to figure out our why, and to figure out which narratives in our lives are helpful and which ones are holding us back. I've experienced this with my car. Like I've been attached to the past with the car. I've been having difficulty getting rid of it. I've sort of been skirting the salvage people lately. I need to just let it go. I've been kind of bargaining with fate. I've been kind of looking at it and say, maybe I could fix it. And I can't even get the trunk open or the hood open to look at it inside. And when you start breaking down damage, you can find a lot more damage in the inside after an accident. So the smart thing for me to do would just be to finally let it go. But there's so much emotions wrapped up into it. But now Saturn is saying, well, some of those dreams have to end. Some of those narratives are holding you back to freeing up energy for something else. So really important time for us to get clear on our dreams and our why. Okay, going back here. These are great comments, friends. Devin says, Sag is my 3rd house, and I'm using this time to clean up my relationships to app payments. Oh, okay. Austin put our used apps and websites as part of our local community. Oh, that's a good one. Okay, I like that. So you have Sag in the 3rd, and you are going to be and it's going to be retrograding back there as well. Okay. That's interesting. I like that with like apps. Like, yeah, and one of the things that I have been doing in the last few days with the last days of Venus in the South Node in the 3rd house, Devin, is I've been purging my email. So I deleted almost 2,000 inbox emails in the past 2 days. And that's not even the tip of the iceberg. I think I have like 16,000 emails that I haven't deleted. I just kind of hang on to stuff. But yeah, it's a great time to kind of review our commitments when it comes to like apps. And a lot of times in these modern times where we're getting a drain on our resources that we don't even remember signing up for, or we're not even using. So that's a great way to use that too. I like that. I like what Austin talks about with that. Dawn Fisher says, Sag Sun and rising with a Gemini moon, feeling less anxious. Oh, good. Good, Dawn. I am glad to hear that. I think a lot of us with these mercurial type placements are feeling that a little bit. I'm going to switch this to the clock so we can see the chart in real time. Just feeling a little bit of relief with Mercury moving into Capricorn, like we're able to think a little bit clearer potentially. We're not dealing with Mercury maybe moving too quickly or having difficulty seeing multiple perspectives. It really just slows us down and helps us to think with sort of our more practical brain rather than our idealistic brain, which I think can be a really nice balancing energy that we could put to good use during this season. Candy Corn is here. That's a cool name. Venus South Node was on top of natal Libra stellium and feeling a lot better this week. Yeah, that Venus South Node is tough. Like it definitely has felt like it has removed some things that we were really attached to. Some things that brought us a lot of joy in the past. It could have been, in my case, it was a vehicle. It could also be a relationship. It could be a friendship. It could be an item that we were attached to. And it wasn't necessarily something that was all bad either. Sometimes when we let go of things, we're like, oh yeah, we knew that was time to go. But other times it can be like, well, some parts of that were really good. And when we have to release that can be challenging. I do think on the plus side, Venus is making any necessary partings fairly harmonious. So that's something to keep in mind as we move forward too. Tatiana was talking about her chart. Hopefully I helped with that, Tatiana. Maybe I'll see your reaction down here. I'm going back in the chart here, in the chat, just making sure I'm getting everything. Tracy Chaplin says, recently an important teacher passed away. She was my spiritual teacher in kinesiology and other energy healing, but also have done a lot of letting go, especially in groups in the 11th with Venus. Okay, yes. Yeah, like letting go of a teacher. Hopefully her passing was peaceful and very painful, right? It can be very painful, but sometimes it will help rebalance our life. And sometimes there's just loss and we just have to kind of go through the grieving process. And there's not always like a higher meaning and spiritual purpose to the loss. I think that I like the perspective that omens are not always, that everything in our life isn't an omen, that we feel the recognition of something when we feel a connection to something in our life and then we get a message, but not everything that happens is necessarily like that. But yes, I'm sorry to hear that your spiritual teacher passed away, and hopefully you're able to grieve that loss and then free that energy up, and maybe there will be someone else that will come into your life. That's another thing I've been finding, is that when I'm able to let go of something, nature abhors a vacuum, and something will come to fill that space. And it's not always the same, and we don't always replace something one-to-one, but we can keep going, and life does go on. Tracy Gorman says Virgo stellium in the 12th and 0-degree Gemini moon in the 9th natally. Yeah, so you're probably feeling this shift with Mercury as well, Tracy, with that Virgo stellium and the Gemini moon. Hopefully that's helping you maybe get some rest now, right, with that Virgo stellium in the 12th, and not feel like everything's moving so quickly potentially. Julie Palmer is here, from northeastern Wisconsin. Ooh, I hope you're a Packers fan, Julie. So go Pack, go. The kids are doing good, Julie. Sag Sun and rising in the 1st. Okay. Yeah, looking forward to hearing about Sagittarius. So I'm looking at, Julie does have a question down here. I'm going to go back. I won't skip all this other stuff. Candy Corn says, I love your stuff and new to the channel. Well, thank you, Candy Corn. It's wonderful to have you here, my friend. It's an honor to be serving you here today on the channel live. So let's see. Devin says, oh yeah, the Virgo community can't wait for Neptune to get out of Pisces. Yes, amen to that. And Saturn on some level. Although Saturn into Aries could be fraught with its own challenges, especially for a Cancer sun such as myself. Having Saturn in an overcoming square to your Sun and Mercury isn't awesome either. But, we'll deal with that when it comes, right? We still got the whole 30 degrees pretty much for Saturn to go through in Pisces. Some younger Virgos don't even really remember what it was like not to have the fog of Neptune opposing their sun, moon, and rising. Amen to that, Devin. It's definitely a different vibe for sure. So Julie says, what does December look like for Sagittarius? Well, Julie, let's see. One of the things I can say, Julie, is that to get a much more in-depth look at your rising sign or Sagittarius in general, I did the new moon or the full moon. I can't remember which one it was. I think it was the new moon through the houses recently. Go check that video out. I would think it was the last video that I did where I took everything through the houses, and there was a bunch of information specifically on that, but just a couple things for Sag rising and Sag sun in general. So, we just have been talking about Mercury moving out of Sagittarius and into Capricorn. So for Sag rising, Sag sun, you probably have a lot more focus now on your physical resources with Mercury moving into the second house. The challenge with that is that Mercury is going to station retrograde in your second house. So if you're a Sag rising or a Sag sun, I wouldn't go out and like spend a ton of money in the first few weeks of December, because you might have to review your purchases or how you make your money or something of that nature. Good news for you in December, Sag people, is that Jupiter, the ruler of Sagittarius, is going to be stationing direct at the very end of the month. So around December 30th, Jupiter stations direct in your sixth house. So if you're having like a work issue or a health issue, things could start moving forward again with that. And just hang in there with like the home challenges. All right, with Saturn in your fourth house, a lot of responsibilities for Sagittarians right now. And that can be a little bit disorientating with Neptune there as well. And then, the other thing we're looking at is Venus is in a couple days after this weekend, Venus is going to be moving into Scorpio. So moving into the 12th house out of the 11th. So sometimes when we have Venus in the 12th, I tend to think that it tends to make us more attracted to retreating, to resting a little bit, to taking it easy. The challenge with this is that it is the ruler of your 11th house and the 6th house. So Venus is not in as good of a condition in Scorpio as it was in Libra. Now, there is a caveat to that, because some of the Eastern and Jyotish astrologers would say that sometimes the nodes corrupt a planet that is near it. So maybe being away from the node could be an improvement on some level. But in this case, Venus being in the 12th house, Project Hindsight, Robert Schmidt talks a lot about planets having difficulty doing good in a quote unquote bad house or in a dark house that doesn't witness the ascendant. So there could be some challenges with groups. There could be a little bit of challenges with work potentially. But I think that the positive thing about this is just get really clear for everyone. This is advice for everyone too, not just Sagittarius. With Venus in Scorpio, it's in its exile. It's in the house of Mars. And oftentimes Venus is a planet that we want to let things come to us. And when Venus is in a martial sign, like Sagittarius, not Sagittarius, with Venus in Scorpio or Aries, the two Mars signs, sometimes we can pursue things that we'd be better off letting come to us. So try not to get too aggressive about trying to get what you want. Venus can glamorize things from the past in Scorpio that really may not be the best for us, that are like either toxic or that are that have outlived their vitality or efficacy. So it's important to appreciate what we've had in the past, but also to recognize that when a planet's moving through Scorpio, its energy is of composting, of separating from something so that we can liberate that spirit and energy for something new when the planet will move into Sagittarius. So I hope that helps, Julie, for you. Tatiana says, that was super helpful, Spencer. Okay, good. Especially because I got burnout and was asked by Spirit to stop everything and recover and find resources within. I do feel like dissolving for sure, and it is challenging. Yeah, Tatiana. I mean, maybe that's also the benefit of Neptune on some level, my friend, is that maybe we're driving a little bit too hard, and Neptune can help us return to this sense of oneness or peace. And that can be a relief sometimes too, even if in the moment it feels a little bit disorientating and scary. And I have found when with the Neptune stuff opposing my Virgo placements, sometimes I'll feel really tired or really burnt out. So that tracks for sure. Janet Goodspeed is here. What's up, Janet? Nice to see you, my friend. Hope you're doing well. Welcome to the chat. Devin says Neptune was in Aquarius when it was discovered as well, conjunct Saturn. It feels like Saturn, who helps decide what comes into our realities, was like welcome to the consciousness, Neptune. Yeah, that is a really interesting way of looking at those outer planets, is really just looking at that time in history and even looking at the discovery chart itself. So that's a good catch there too, with like the connection with Neptune and Saturn, Devin. Dawn says, didn't Marvin's dad play and was really awesome? So Dawn is talking about Marvin Harrison Jr. Yes, Marvin Harrison Sr. was an incredible wide receiver for the Indianapolis Colts a few years ago. I mean, he was Peyton Manning's #1 target over there, along with Reggie Wayne in Indy. And you know what's funny, Don? Marvin Harrison Sr. is about 6 foot, 6'1", maybe about 200 pounds. His son is like 6'3" or 6'4", 215, 220 pounds. And also, oh, by the way, he runs a 4.3, so he's like way bigger, but has his dad's skill and all the lessons his dad's probably been teaching him from day one. And he's really, really fast. So he is a complete wide receiver prospect, and I'm super excited to watch him play. And if you're in the market for a top 3 pick, he's a guy you want to keep an eye on. Probably the best non-quarterback prospect in the draft, in my personal opinion. And if you're a fantasy football player, scoop him up next year. Julian says, I have seen him. I watch a lot of college ball. My grandson is scoping out options for college. Oh, good. Yeah, he's incredible. Janet says, I have no sports ball team. Janet, come on. You don't even have a hockey team? You're Canadian. What kind of Canadian are you? What about the Canucks? Don't you like get into the Canucks up there? Is it a Canuck country where you're at? Janet, come on. You got to have some puck friends. It's funny. Julian says, so much better, and hoping it will work with my 3 Virgo placements remaining hopeful. Okay, this is in reference to Mercury switching signs. Good. Melissa Carey is here. Hello, Melissa. Says, hi, Spencer. Speaking of Capricorn, would you fancy explaining Pluto leaving the 12th house, Cap Sun, and going into the ascendant, Aquarius rising? Not sure what more Pluto would look like from Cap Suns. Okay, yes, I will do that. And welcome Amber from Ohio. Nice to see you, Amber. Okay, so let me get to that in a second here. And then Tracy, I'll get to your question in a second too. Okay, so let me just show you when Pluto is going to be moving into Aquarius. So here's January 20th. We're going to have Pluto ingressing into Aquarius right with the sun in Aquarius. And we're having a question. I'll just put it on the ascendant for you. We just have a question about what would happen once it moves for an Aquarius rising. What's going to happen when we have Pluto moving out of the 12th house and into the first? So, Pluto, if we're utilizing the lectures that one of my favorite astrologers, Robert Schmidt, had given about the outer planets, he definitely says that they're their own thing. We can't exactly make a one-to-one comparison to a planet as it being a higher vibration or something like that. They are their own thing. But if he did have to make a comparison, he would compare Pluto to a transcendental Mercury. Now, I've also heard other astrologers talk about Pluto as a transcendental Venus. And I could see arguments for both. I could see the argument for Venus being one of catharsis, because Aphrodite was the goddess or the deity responsible for the emotional catharsis of the Greek theater. And Pluto is a planet that dredges things up and says, we've got to deal with it. You've repressed this for too long. Now it's time to deal with it. Now, from the perspective of seeing it as a transcendental Mercury, I could say that Mercury is a planet that stirs things up and alchemizes them. You know, it's a change agent. And from that perspective, Pluto is a major change agent that says, well, you've got to be able to alchemize the intention of the sun and the substance of the moon. Now, previously I was talking about Neptune as transcendental moon as universal substance. Schmidt would also consider Uranus as the transcendental sun, universal mind, the one mind. So think about Pluto and or Mercury, if you want to make that connection, as the intermediaries between those two types of energies. So I think that what we're seeing with Pluto, a couple things. Change, okay? So there's going to be this is why modern astrologers would talk about Pluto as transformation, right? I love the way that Anne Ortley talks about it as the cocoon, the butterfly in the cocoon. But if you understand metamorphosis, the butterfly like melts inside of the cocoon. So there is this really crazy chemical change that's going on inside that cocoon, and maybe even underground or under the surface, if we're bringing in the Greek myth of Hades, that there's something beneath the surface that we're not even seeing that's happening that is creating changes. So long story short, now that Pluto's in your first house, or will be, you might be going through those changes personally. It could be through your body with the first house. It could be through your character. It could be through your consciousness. It's in Aquarius, so there will be changes that will be related to how we give and receive information. A lot of people are talking about technology related to this, ideas, the fabric of society. If we think of Aquarius as a pure Saturnian sign, whereas Capricorn is more of a blend of Mars and Saturn because of Mars's exaltation in that sign. We think about distance. We think about hovering over in the 30,000 foot viewpoint. We think about the ideals that craft the boundaries and the laws of the fabric of society. So we're probably going to be dissolving and reforming how we just think about what a society is and the ideas associated around it. We may even be dissolving and reforming what it means to be human. Okay, this is part of what's going on with a lot of like considering artificial intelligence and what our role as flesh beings is when we have a computer that is going to be potentially 1,000 times quicker / smarter than us. That idea is fascinating, but also a little bit scary. So this could also be related to the fears that we have around technology, the fears that we have around being replaced by robots or AI or something like that. Oftentimes where Pluto is things that we are afraid of. When it was in Capricorn, we had a lot of fear related to governments. We had a lot of fear related to captains of industry, or the wealth gap became much wider during Pluto and Capricorn. So this is another thing where we could be experiencing and having to deal with things that had been repressed or put underground or beneath the surface of our awareness that will bubble up like a volcanic eruption to be dealt with. So we are going to have to deal with the ramifications and the corruption of the technology that we have created, in theory, to be of service to us as human beings. And the problem is going to be that we're going to have to be careful that we do not become in service of it or enslaved to it, which on some level we already have become addicted to our technological devices, and we have to play this game of pleasing the algorithmic gods and things of that nature. And I think that ultimately Pluto, while it can be painful, can be a rebalancing force. So by the end of Pluto in Aquarius, hopefully we will understand what we need to do as a human species to be able to work with our technology rather than against it or for it. I hope that makes sense. And all of those bigger picture questions will probably be experienced in microcosm for you in the first house as well. Okay, like how do you change who you are to adapt to that new reality? And how do all of us change to adapt to the new reality in our particular Aquarius house? Like, I'm a Leo rising, so Pluto will be moving into my 7th house, which means that my relationships could go through that type of potential change. My relationship to the public, which is a 7th house signification, could go through that type of change. So those are some things just to keep aware of as we move forward. So hopefully that was helpful for you there, Melissa. But, I think on some level, getting Pluto off of your natal sun could be a relief. Like, I know that having Pluto not opposing my own natal sun in Cancer and my Mercury is, I'll take it, I will take it. Let's see. Everything's got to be somewhere. This is the thing, and there's a great mystery to all of it. And I think that can, living into the answer is really important, especially when we're astrologers, right? And it can be really easy for us to look to a planet that has some negative connotations and get really nervous about a change. And sometimes those thoughts are warranted, but most often we tend to catastrophize, and the worst possible outcome usually does not come to pass. So that's something to keep in mind too. Okay. Tracy's question says, yes, she would say that about omens. Is this your spiritual teacher, Tracy? It says, I resonate with what you were saying for sure regarding Mercury. I have Mercury on the MC in Cancer. Would that be affected by the Mercury shift as well? Oh yeah, totally, Tracy. So Tracy, let's just say that you, let's see, Mercury on the MC in Cancer would make you a Libra rising if you're using whole signs. So let's just float it over there for a minute. I'm gonna put Libra on the ascendant. Okay. I think, what am I doing here? Yeah, so let's say Tracy has Mercury here in the 10th, and Mercury was in her 3rd, but now is moving into her 4th house, and there's a shift. There's going to be an opposition between her natal Mercury and transiting Mercury, there probably is a shift in focus from your immediate environment, like neighbors or siblings or daily habits and routines or a learning process. And the shift might be towards your home, your family, your roots. There may be some questions about your living situation or something like that, but then it's going to be retrograding back into the third house. So the themes that you were experiencing over the last week or two are probably going to be up for reevaluation during the retrograde cycle. Now, when you have Mercury opposite your natal Mercury, I guess the challenge with that, and I'm going to be going through this myself, my friend, I have Mercury in Cancer, but in the 12th house. I would say that the way that the collective is communicating and the things that the collective is maybe communicating or thinking about may be a little bit different than what we naturally would think about or the way that we communicate. So like if we have Mercury in Cancer, a lot of our thoughts are very subjective and emotional. I compare Mercury in Cancer and Mercury in any water sign on some level to trying to shout underwater, right? Our emotions are like, a pool that we have to wade through to be able to get to the surface. And there is nothing like a Mercury in Cancer who's upset trying to talk. And like for me, if I'm really upset, I'm not going to be able to talk very well because the words have to rise through layers and layers and layers of feelings. Now, when Mercury is in Capricorn, that's not necessarily how people are going to be communicating with one another. There might be a lot more practical, tangible communication that may feel a little awkward for those of us who tend to communicate a little bit more emotionally, maybe a little bit more with nonverbal communication. So it could feel a little bit of tension around that. And there also could be some questions around your living situation versus your career or your public life. And Mercury is the ruler of your 9th and your 12th house. So there could be questions around your own beliefs and maybe even questioning like undermining influences in your life too with the 12th house. I've been talking a lot about undermining influences with that. So hopefully that's helpful for you, Tracy. Okay, let's see. Dawn says, moving forward would be amazing. I fell hard on Thanksgiving and still can hardly get around. Communication with doctors and pharmacists has been so discombobulating too. Oh, I'm sorry, Dawn. Hope that is working out for you. Dawn, are you Leo rising like me? I can't remember. But if so, then you'd have Mercury moving into your 6th house. So maybe the communication with the doctors might start to improve potentially. Or you might have to go in a review process with that and revisit it eventually with Mercury eventually retrograding there. Melissa says, hi, Spencer, thanks a million. Okay, thanks, Melissa. Hopefully that was helpful for you. She says that, yes, it's been on my sun sign since 2008. Yes, that's a lot. My partner's had, Pluto in her 1st house for that length of time, at plus a few more years. And I've seen her go through some incredible transformations as well. So Cap risings, you might get some relief having Pluto finally leaving your 1st house. You're a changed person for sure than when it started. Melissa says, had lots of loss, to be honest, in the past years. Yeah, me too. Yeah, I've lost some pretty important people in my life as well, and it was not easy. It was definitely intense. Devin says, interesting that the sun is right there. Something dark or corrupt might be forced into the light around that time. Good. I like that, Devin. I mean, I don't like it, but I like your observation. And I think that you're right. I think that the sun definitely shines a big spotlight on things, and a Sun-Pluto conjunction could definitely expose a difficult truth. Maybe it is through some kind of leader because it's associated with the sun. Maybe it's also the exposure of a technological challenge as well. Like maybe we get some information about, I don't know, like maybe Chat GPT is starting to do something weird or like something like that. That could be an awareness that we have. I like to think of the sun as, and light in general, as awareness. So we may become aware of something corrupt like you are pointing out. Melissa says, I have the moon in Leo. Brilliant stuff. Thanks, Spencer. Oh, good. Thanks, Melissa. And yeah, that's gonna, so out of the frying pan into the fire, right? Or with off of your sun and then opposing your moon. I mean, this is astrology, but we'll get through it together. Devin says, last comment about the sun was in reference to the Pluto ingress. Yes, gotcha, bud. Dawn says, sun rising and Sag sun and rising, Gemini moon. Natal Mercury in Capricorn. Okay, yeah. Okay, so I have fire rising there. So Dawn, you're going through that Mercury in the second house. What's your? So your sixth house is Aries, right? Am I thinking of this correctly? No, sixth house would be Taurus. Sorry, I'm just trying to do it in my head without even looking at it. So Dawn, I would say this, just pay attention to Jupiter moving direct at the end of the month. You may have a helper or a doctor or an appointment that starts to move forward, or like a blocked situation starts to move forward at the end of December because of Jupiter's station direct in your sixth house. So keep an eye out for that. That could be something to look for with the timing. Tracy says, so true, very helpful. There was a reference to the 12th. And unhelpful areas was an eye-opener from last week. Yes, we were talking about undermining, like the underminer. I'm always under you, but I'm always beneath you, but nothing is beneath me, or something like that, right? From The Incredibles. I'm just stretching out a little bit here, friends. Make sure you stretch out in your time with us today. Make sure that you're moving your body around, because we sit too much. We got to make sure we're moving. We can move and talk. Let me take this opportunity to ask you very kindly to hit that like button. If you are new, I would love it if you would become a subscriber and sign up for the newsletter. If you want to make a gift to the channel, you can hit that $ and make a super chat or super sticker. That always helps too. Appreciate everyone's generosity on this channel. We have a lot of really supportive folks. Yeah, and stretch your body out. One of the things I've been doing lately is kind of funny. As we get older, joints get stiff. We need to stay mobile, etc., etc. And one of the things that I'm learning about is how to increase my circulation. I have read some literature about the South Node. I believe this was from Judith Hill, where she talked about, she's like a medical astrologer type person, and she talked about the South Node being maybe some points of challenge in our bodies. And I have the South Node in Aquarius, and Aquarius is associated with circulation in the body. So I sometimes have some circulation issues. Oh, thank you, Dawn, for the super sticker. Thank you so much, my friend, for your generosity and for that wonderful gift. I appreciate you. So I've been thinking about ways to increase my circulation, and I've been starting to, I came across this video, this random video for like full body tapping, where you like tap your body just to get like get blood to the surface and like move things around. And I've started to do this every morning, and I'm just like slapping myself all the time now, which honestly, it feels really good. It's like I'm just kind of like beating on my hips and my back and my shoulders. Oh man, like the things we have to do to get all of our energy. It's kind of like a qigong energy exercise, where you're just kind of moving around things in your body. It's like almost like an acupressure technique, and I've been doing this a lot lately, and it really has been helping. I do it with my kidneys and my legs and my knees, my neck, my head. Get it on your face, get some circulation everywhere in those difficult to reach places. I was looking into there's this thing called a hip hook, where it opens your hips up. Sorry, I'm going on this weird tangent, but all of the like increasingly ridiculous devices and that you need to like keep your body limber is kind of funny to me. one of my favorite things, and this is, I'll get back to the astrology in a second, but I have this little ball that has a lot of like little like foam points on it. It's probably about the size of a softball. Man, I'll tell you, that thing really gets into your muscles and your joints, and I love it. Okay, let's get back to it. We're all stretched out. Get a drink of water. I love all these comments. It's fun spending time with all of you here today on this Friday afternoon. Yeah, if you have a question, just put in all caps question, so I make sure that I get it. And if you have questions about, you know, general astrology stuff, technique, your chart, all those things, we're just kind of hanging out. Sports, you want to know about the latest, you know, draft picks coming up. If your team's not doing so good, we'll talk about that. Need some fantasy advice. I'm pretty obsessed with fantasy football. Maybe even too much so. I've been kind of questioning whether I want to do it again next year. I think it's just taking up a little bit too much of my brain space, but we'll see. We all need a little bit of fantastical diversions here and there. Oh, Dawn says Uranus is all up in there at the moment. My natal Saturn too. Yeah, in the 6th house with Taurus. Yes, a lot of changes there with our bodies, and dealing with challenges and misfortunes sometimes can be a little overwhelming. But 6th house is about the journey, Dawn. And I think that the journey is really important when you have major transits through the 6th house. It's something where you really just have to kind of understand that there will be some things that will pull you away from completing some things, but it's a preparatory phase. It's a preparatory phase for completion. If you think about it with the angular triads, the 6th house is the one that was on the 7th house previously. And in astrology, we can think about it as it's all the things we're doing to get us ready for a completion, okay? Or you can also think about it as everything that's pulling us away from completing something. There is this kind of duality with the way that the houses move. So you have this is primary and secondary motion, okay? So what I'm talking about here with angular triads. So let's say we have these 3 houses that are related to one another, and we have the angular house, 7th house, and we have the cadent house here, which is 6, the angular, which is 7th, and the succedent one that is 8. And through primary motion, this clockwise motion, the motion of the sun, okay, we are seeing the 8th house will come to the angle after the 7th, and the 6th house was previously on the angle. If you look at the motion of a chart, all right? So I'll just show you how this works. See how Aries is moving into the 6th? It was previously on the angle, but then it moves into the 6th, and then we have the succedent house is now in the angle here with Taurus, okay, and so on and so forth. And this is how a chart moves over the course of the day. You can see it's kind of shifting every hour. Our rising sign is based on the hour, okay? So when we have 6th house stuff, not only are we being pulled, are the planets that are in that house being pulled away, okay? So let's just see Jupiter here. Let's look at, here's Jupiter, Sag rising chart like we're talking about. Jupiter is being pulled away from completion, but it is also desiring to go by secondary motion, the motion of the moon and of the prime, of the zodiacal motion, okay, which is related to the moon and fortune. That planet is wanting to go to that space of completion, but is being pulled away from it, this push and pull, okay? Eventually, those planets over the long term, over many days, will move in this secondary motion, okay? So there's understanding angular triads and this dual primary and secondary motion has really helped me understand what a planet's desires and intentions might be in a certain place. Really powerful technique for understanding astrology. But the long and the short of it is that when planets are in the 6th house, it's either a preparatory phase, or it can feel like we're being pulled away from our completion or our celebration. But we have to learn from the journey. Okay, I tell this to my sixth house stellium daughter all the time. Like she's been robbed of a lot of like ceremony in her life due to circumstances completely outside of her control. If you think about that as the joy of Mars, it's misfortune, Mars, that comes to you through that house is called Malas Tuke, right? Or Kakas Tuke, bad fortune. So it's just things that are outside of your control that are pulling you away from that completion. But there's a lot of lessons to be learned from that through acceptance and through preparation. We talk about the I Ching as a document that helps us understand that not every moment is a moment for action. Sometimes the best action we can do is prepare for when the moment is right to move forward again. So hang in there and just keep an eye on Jupiter moving forward again. And then eventually it's going to move into your seventh house, and that's probably going to feel a lot better once it does too. Dawn says, we just don't move anymore like we used to. Too much electronics nowadays. Yes, Dawn, I agree. I have this chair. If you see me wobbling around, I have this chair. I can't remember the name of it now, but it's basically like I'm sitting on a medicine ball, but it's like built into the chair, which is super cool. I can't remember what it is, but it's like a wood platform built onto a small medicine ball. So I'm just kind of like moving around. It helps my hips move a little bit more, so I'm not static. I love it. Sprung is the name of it. Sprung chair. And it's just this guy out in the East Coast that makes them now. I think he hadn't got a lot of business when I ordered mine. He was like, oh, where did you find me? I'm not even advertising. I'm like, I don't know, man, Pinterest. Like, so, but he does good work. Devin says, I'll have to hit you up later about how to get that wheel in solar fire. Oh yeah. I think, yeah, I have Astro Gold here up on the screen, and I have the Decan rulers, the sign glyph, and the bound rulers all in the same little sphere there, which is really cool because it helps you kind of see which decan or which bound a planet is in, which can give you some additional information for sure. Laura Elizabeth is here. Hello, Laura. And maybe I welcomed you earlier, but Laura says, we baby boomers with Pluto and Leo are starting our Pluto oppositions for the next 20 years. Wondering your thoughts on Pluto opposition. My Mercury is conjunct Pluto in Leo in the 9th house. Ooh, Laura, that's a big question. Let's see. Let me think. All right, so Laura, so Pluto oppositions, I'm guessing, they're going to come, what age does that start generally? If you're a baby boomer, you're probably like 60 or something like that. Let me think about that for a second, because I'm just thinking about how Pluto has like it has a variable cycle. It's anywhere from like late teens to 20 plus years. So we'd probably, let's see. I'm just going to do a random, maybe tell me the year that you were born, and I could see what that might look like in a chart for you. Laura, what's your rising sign? And what houses are lit up with this? Because, I mean, it's going to be different for every person. When we have something lighting up our charts like that, we will need to look at it from a different lens. Let's see. Oh, wow, Laura. Okay, people born 1943 on, I'm 1946, Sag rising. Wow. Okay, yeah, so it does happen a little bit further down the road, huh? So, okay, so Sag rising. So Pluto is you have Pluto and Leo here, 3rd house, 9th house. Okay, we're talking about Laura's chart. Sag rising, Sun, Saturn in Cancer. Well, the good news, Laura, is that Pluto is going to be not opposing our suns anymore in Cancer. So that's good. But the Pluto opposing our own Pluto Well, it's a toughie because first of all, I plead a little bit of ignorance because I haven't lived through that transit myself yet. And sometimes I find it a little bit more difficult to speak on a particular transit when I haven't experienced it firsthand. I've experienced the Saturn opposition, I've experienced the Saturn return. Um, I'm going through my Uranus opposition right now. But what I think could be possible with a Pluto opposition, especially over the Leo and Aquarius axes, is that we are going to be Pluto and Leo has a challenging relationship with needing to be seen and recognized. I thinking about my own father, who is a Pluto. He's a late Pluto Leo. He was in the end of the Pluto Leo generation, and he is someone who isn't super comfortable with visibility. There are other Pluto Leos that hunger for visibility and for respect and for acknowledgement more than anything in the world. And I would say that on a negative way of looking at it, some of the younger generations, and this is not, I don't think this is everybody, and this is not 100% my opinion or anything, but sometimes when we are generalizing the Pluto Leo generation, there is sort of I don't know, younger generations are sort of kind of calling out some selfishness with it, some self-absorbedness. One of the jokes I'm thinking of is like Saturday Night Live, where they were making fun of the baby boomer generation, where they were saying, talking about houses, and the baby boomers were like, "Ah, I bought my fifth house today. Good for me." While everyone was having difficulty with the housing market. I also am thinking of a scene in Community with baby boomer slash Libra sun, ironically, Pierce Hawthorne, who is played by Chevy Chase, and he's talking about baby boomer Santa. Like, he's playing baby boomer Santa. Go look that up on YouTube. Baby boomer Santa. And it's a lot about wanting to be special and the challenges of trying to be special, and wanting to be acknowledged, wanting to be a singular point of consciousness. I mean, there's rock stars in Pluto and Leo, but there are dark sides to that too. There are dark sides to hungering for attention, or hungering for dominance, or hungering for power, that we can see with Pluto and Leo. And when you are experiencing that with an opposition to Pluto in Aquarius, the challenges with Pluto and Aquarius are a little bit different. Some of the challenges are feeling like we aren't able to be individuals, that we have to homogenize. And for Pluto and Leos, that could be extraordinarily painful if they're already afraid of being subsumed and unseen and unacknowledged in an environment that is requiring us to give up some of our personal desires and needs for the good of the collective, which we will have to do because of the changes that we're experiencing with things like climate change, with resources becoming limited. We will have to give up and make some sacrifices of our own power and resources to rebalance the needs of the collective. And that might be really challenging for people that are already struggling with wanting to ascend to some kind of throne of power or acknowledgement. And doesn't mean that the Pluto and Leo people are wrong. That's the last thing I want you to take away from this. Everybody has a Pluto. Everybody has something in their life that they've repressed, or that maybe even they've pursued to the point of corruption. So I think that where Pluto is in our life, we have to deal with things that have been repressed. So I'm a Pluto Libra, and my my view of relationships was challenging from very, very early on in my life. My parents were divorced multiple times between the two of them, and it made me very distrustful and paranoid about relationships and about commitment. So that's something that I'm still working on and working through as an adult. So Pluto and Leos alternately may have a fear of being seen. Maybe they have a fear of being a tyrant, where also they may also sometimes embrace some of those tendencies too. So those are the things that we're probably going to be seeing with the opposition. Is those fears are going to be different for the collective. I'm going to be super blunt, and I think that this could be a little bit painful to hear, but people are not going to care as much about your individual journey to become a singular point of light during Pluto and Aquarius, because there are going to be bigger issues to tackle. I hope that that makes sense. And that could be really disorientating for someone whose much of their life has been about finding individual identity. And that's probably where the disconnect and the tension is going to come in. And I say this with all the love in my heart. Like, I'm a Leo rising, friend. The search for personal identity is important to me. Like, it's something that I've struggled with in my life and tried to figure out what it means to be an individual and part of a community, etc. And for anyone that's had Leo placements, the Pluto in Aquarius, age, the age where we are going to be having to deal with the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, it's going to test us. We've already been tested a little bit with this. We were tested during the pandemic, okay, and continue to be tested during these times, where we had to sacrifice some of our own individual desires and in some cases our own individual freedoms for the good of the collective. Some of us went along with that willingly. Other people railed against it with every fiber of their being. And that is part of that type of thing is probably going to be a theme for the Pluto and Leo generation moving forward. And over your 3rd and 9th house, this could be something where your belief system has been a source of intense transformation and change. But there might be a focus on your routines, your daily habits and your routines, relationships with siblings and extended family members, neighbors. All of those things are going to be up for, great deep healing, transformation, etc. And my advice would be to go with the flow. When we resist the changes that are happening in society, we tend to exhaust ourselves swimming upstream. That doesn't mean that we should lose all of our values just because there is a new set of social values coming out in the world. It depends on what it is. If the value that you're holding on to is limiting someone else's freedom or ability to be themselves, then it's not a healthy value. But there are some things that are, timeless, that we can bring with us from one generation to another. So we have to figure out which of those is important, which ones aren't. So good luck with that. I'm going to be doing this at some point in my life when Pluto moves into Aries, if I make it that long, hopefully. And we'll see, and we'll compare notes, whether in this life or the next one. I don't know what Pluto and Aries is kind of far away, so we'll see. So I hope that was helpful, and we'll get through it together, friend. Devin says Leo is the 1940s and includes the atomic generation. Yes, definitely. Mystic Solution says the South Node will be hitting my 4-planet stellium in my 10th, and my stellium is Mercury, Mars, Pluto, and Venus. I don't even know what to think of this. 16 degrees Capricorn rising. Okay, well, let me unpack that in a second. Thank you, Michelle, for the super sticker. Nice to see you, my friend. Appreciate your wonderful gift to the channel and your continuing generosity. Appreciate you, my friend. Okay, so let me see. I'll come back to this in a second here. Mystic solutions. I'm just checking and see here. Devin says Pluto in Aquarius is also a rebellious spirit where the outsides of society may overthrow the status quo. I like that, Devin. That's a good point. Think of Leo as the ultimate insider, and Aquarius is the fringe. So there's going to have to be communication between the fringe and the people who have consolidated power during this opposition. And that could be a lot of tension, like I think if we're able to release our deep need to feel acknowledged by the collective, that may be helpful. I think that the healthiest Leo is one that is their most authentic self, whether they have the approval of the collective or not. I think that when we release the need to get the applause and to get the acknowledgement and we give it to ourselves, that's when we're healthy Leos. Also, I would offer that a healthy Leo story comes to us from Liz Green, and it's the story of Parsifal and the Grail Cup. And Parsifal, failed to have empathy in his first few journeys to find the Grail. And finally, through his empathy for others, he was able to successfully understand the essence of the Grail, asking the question, whom does the Grail serve? And so this is another thing to think about if we're dealing with Pluto and Leo energy, is how can we create empathy for others that aren't just like us, right? How can we share our wisdom, our ability to be leaders and to empower others, as well as in addition to feeling empowered ourselves. Okay, Mystic Solution says the South Node will be hitting my 4-planet stellium in the 10th. Mars, Mercury, Pluto, and Venus, 16-degree Capricorn rising. So this is South Node in Libra. Well, I can answer that by just talking about the South Node in general. The South Node is, according to Hellenistic astrologers, a place where energy, where physicalness is leaving the earthly plane. Think of it like a drain. And when it's hitting multiple planets in a chart, there may be a lot of things that we have to let go of. Now, in Western society, that feels scary because we've been trained on a growth and acquisition mindset. From maybe a more Eastern spiritual perspective, the South Node brings us closer to our spirituality through detachment, through letting go of the earthly bindings and chains that keep us in a cycle of desire. So this may be a wonderful opportunity to practice detachment, Mystic Solutions, to understand that losses in the physical plane will bring you closer to a spiritual understanding and existence. And it may come to you through your public life, through your career, and things of that nature. You could also be dealing with things from the past that need to be processed. Think about also the South Node as K2, the severed body of a dragon or a demon that is processing old things. So it's a great time to just let go, to absorb the nutrients from the experience, and then let the form go, right? So take the wisdom from those experiences and then just say, I'm free. It can be a liberating influence as well. So hang in there. You got this. Let's see. Isla Sky says, question, talking of Pluto, Spencer, does that mean you have been through your Pluto square? Yes. Yes, I have. I've been going through the Pluto square for the past decade-ish, at least, by whole sign. Yeah, the Isla Sky, the Pluto square for me was a number of things. The main thing that I think came out of it was and this was over my 3rd and 6th house axes there. Third and sixth. I had Pluto in the third house in Libra, sixth house Capricorn. When my Pluto square was perfecting, I became a full-time parent. I inherited a lot of responsibility with my teenage daughter, who had been living at her mom's for the first 14 years of her life. And I was a non-custodial parent, and we had a custody change. And I inherited full legal and physical custody of my daughter during my Pluto square. And it was a huge shift in the way that I had to take responsibility for not only my day-to-day habits, but also how I took care of others and the work that I would do that I wasn't going to get a lot of credit for. Because if any of you have ever been a parent of a teenager, there's a lot of things you're going to do that you're not going to get acknowledged for, and you're probably going to get punished for on some level by your teenager, who is just trying to figure out how to be a person and deal with different hormonal changes and things of that nature. So that was I would say that was the main experience of my Pluto square. I would also say that I had to deal with my mom being really sick during that period of time and eventually passing away, and having to deal with my perspective on life and death. So I came face to face with death during that period of time as well. And it was tough. It was painful. And I'm a little bit cautiously nervous about Pluto moving into my seventh house. It could be better. It could be, I just don't know. I've never experienced it yet. But I am excited about being done with the Pluto square and having Pluto not being opposing my Sun and Mercury. I'm not super excited about Pluto squaring my natal moon by whole sign. That doesn't sound awesome. But we'll see. We will see. And thanks, Julene, for the super sticker. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate your generosity. I'll get down to these comments and questions here. I'm a little bit behind, but appreciate all of you. So I hope that was helpful for you, Isla Sky. I know that you have another thought about that. Let's see if let's see. Isla Sky says, my folks are Leo 1945 and 50, so all of that was interesting to hear what they'll go through. Good luck. Yeah, a lot of our parents are in that generation, or grandparents if you're younger, and they're gonna be going through challenging stuff too. Like it may be a tough time for those folks. So compassion is important, even if we feel some challenging feelings around the way that they've acted in the past, or the challenges that they've gone through. Just remember, what goes around comes around. And if you are too dismissive of your Pluto and Leo family, friends, etc., just wait until your kids and grandkids are younger, are older, and then say, well, you Pluto and Libras, or you Pluto and Scorpios, you did this and this and this. Like, everyone's got issues that they've got to work out. And there's a quote about throwing stones at glass houses that I'll probably butcher if I try to say, but you understand the gist of it. Okay. Yeah, so hopefully that answers my Pluto square question. It's a toughie. Yeah, it wasn't the most fun. Devin says Pluto and Capricorn is Spencer's square. Yes, absolutely. Laura Elizabeth says, thanks, Spencer. Profound insight about the me generation, about individuation versus the good of the collective. I have no Aquarius planets, so we'll hope to learn a lot. And Laura, thank you for that comment too. Like, I absolutely mean no disrespect to the baby boomers or the Pluto and Leo folks. I think that there are bigger forces at work than just individuals, but we definitely should self-examine how the generational influence affects us as individuals. I think in a greater on a greater scheme, the power brokers that have Pluto and Leo may be the ones that aren't really thinking about the good of the whole, and they're trying to maintain their own power. There's one individual I'm thinking of in particular that has Pluto in the first house. Okay, you all know who he is. That don't care at all about anyone else, but only about himself and his own ascension to a throne. So take a good hard look at that individual and see how the pursuit of absolute power can corrupt. Devin says, Laura, hopefully you'll be able to share your story with us as you continue to experience it. I agree, Devin. Just tell us how it goes, because we're all gonna, if we're lucky, we'll get to experience a Pluto opposition. This is something I've been talking about with my partner. This is a huge perspective shift. When you see these challenging midlife, later life transits coming up and you're like, oh no, just think about all the people who aren't even lucky enough to get to that point. And it is a gift to be able to have lived that long, to experience a Pluto opposition, a Uranus opposition even, or even a Uranus conjunction if we get to that around age 84 or so. There's just so many different stages of life, and being able to work through it and have compassion for each other while we're going through it is important. Julene says, I have had good experiences with Pluto and Leo people in my life. They seem to be so young at heart, but wise, and seem to relate to younger folks better than other aging generations. Just my experience. Yeah. Like I said, when we make enormous generalizations about individuals just because of where their Pluto was, it's tough. I mean, it's much more of a macrocosmic thing, where the folks that are experiencing that are a product of their time. And some individuals buy into the story / propaganda of their time or the values of their time. We can look at it multiple ways. We can look at it negatively. We can look at it positively. So other people don't. Other people reject all of that. I've been a little bit outside the mainstream of my particular generation. Other things I've fallen in line with. I mean, we all have to make our decisions around that. Some of us have the good fortune to be able to go against the grain, and others we haven't had a lot of choices. There's many different events in our life that cause us to choose what we've chosen. I always go back to this story because I think it's a really interesting story. I have a stepfather who was Pluto in Cancer. Okay, and he's the very end of Pluto in Cancer, 44. And he, and I'm Cancer Sun, so you can imagine some of the challenging experiences he and I have had with one another. He's very patriotic, and he was a police officer for a long time. And his dad died in World War II when he was a baby. And understanding his commitment to the mythology of patriotism, I have compassion for it, because it was a story that he needed to believe in to justify the death of his father. So if you just think about that for a second, and I'm not saying that every perspective that he has is right, or that every decision that he makes based on that is correct. But when you have that type of shadow hanging over your head, it gives you a little bit of compassion for why someone would choose to believe what they believe, and how difficult it might be to change some of that when that's the thing that is kind of holding your reality together. It's tough. And I am positive that I have similar things in my own life, and every single one of you out there has something in your life that is holding together your reality based on your upbringing and your experiences. And some of us will be able to transform that. Others of us will have more difficulty with that. So good luck is what I'll say. But this is the beauty of astrology. When you can see that in someone's chart and you can understand where they're coming from, to me, that is the foundation for tolerance and acceptance of other people, which I think is really important, even if we don't agree with their political views or their perspective on life. Very interesting for sure. Melissa says, yes, definitely. Thanks again, Julene, for the super sticker. Appreciate you. Go Cardinals. Laura says, my Pluto square was totally life-changing, at times scary and empowering. Yeah, it was definitely life-changing for me. I mean, like I said, going from having feeling disempowered as the non-custodial parent at various times to like having to make all the decisions all like overnight. That was a lot to process. So yeah, I relate to that. This guy says, my Pluto 29 degrees Libra conjunct IC has me in seek and destroy mode all the time. That might be because I am in the Scorpio year and I have Mars conjoined Saturn there in a day chart. Okay, well, I mean, be careful with that impulse is what I'll say. Make sure that if you are in quote unquote seek and destroy mode, that what you are seeking to destroy is outmoded thoughts, forms that are no longer vital. Be careful how you wield that sword is what I will say. There are ways to do Scorpio energy years in a healthy way, but it comes through, I think, a lot of acceptance and a lot of owning our own experience. If you externalize that and you try to seek and destroy an external factor that has become an externalization of a shadow, that's when it becomes dangerous. But when you are using that energy to cut away old thoughts and ideals and beliefs and old forms that are no longer serving you, that's when it can be used effectively and efficiently. And what you're really doing is you're liberating that energy to find a new, healthy, poignant form that will be useful in the present. Laura Elizabeth says, oh man, we got so many comments here. This is awesome. Thank you so much for spending your Friday afternoon with me, friends. I really appreciate it. I really enjoy the conversations. So let me, make sure, do me a huge favor, friends. If you haven't liked the video, please do so. It's just the simple thing that can really help the channel out a lot. And if you're new, please subscribe too. And thank you so much for all the super stickers. Those are great gifts to the channel and really help me to open up my time and be able to do this work. Laura Elizabeth says, thanks, Islaska. Report on how it feels as I live it. Travel and philosophy and astrology have been major focuses in my life. Oh, good. Yeah, there's, I've been thinking a lot about how we can age gracefully in the third chapter of our lives. I would say I'm 43. I don't know which chapter I'm in. I never take it for granted. This could be the middle. This could be, I could be getting closer to the end. We never know how much time we have. Maybe it's the first third. Who knows how long we will have, or how long we will live. But learning to age gracefully and apply the wisdom and be able to understand and integrate the experiences we have, I think is really important as we age. I think just being able to say, what did I learn from this experience? Even if it was positive or negative, how can that inform the future choices that I'm going to make? And ultimately, how can I help alleviate both my own and the suffering of others? If you ask yourself those questions, I think that's a great way to go through life, in my opinion, spoken as a 12th house sun. Tatiana says, my Pluto square was really intense because it had the moon in square and the Saturn conjunction. Huge emotional anxiety came out of nowhere and painful relationships. Pluto in the 11th. Libra. Yeah, I'm a little bit nervous about my Pluto moon square. Yeah, anxiety is an interesting word. I have some of that myself, as much as I feel, as I try to be my, I try to project my best self when I am doing this work. I try to be calm and be a leader, and I don't know, I try to be the person who I would want to get advice from, because if that makes sense. I would want to be I would like to give the advice that I would like to be getting in the way that I would like to receive it. It doesn't mean I'm a perfect person or have any super unique spiritual insight or anything like that. But anxiety, that definitely resonates with the Pluto moon square. I think that my Pluto moon square, I won't dwell on this too much, but I've been a little bit detached from society over the last few years. The pandemic brought up a lot of trauma that I had around people and being around large groups of people. I would say that I don't think that I'm necessarily I am not, what is the word I'm looking for? Well, I'm definitely kind of a hermit. I wouldn't say I'm agoraphobic, but I'm a little bit germophobic, I guess I would say, which has caused me to isolate more and longer and more intensely than maybe your average person. So there may be a reckoning that I have to come to with that to be able to figure out how to reintegrate into physical society with Pluto squaring the moon, if I'm anticipating what that might mean for myself personally and the anxiety that may come with that. But we all have our challenges, and you'll probably get to see it in real time played out in front of you if I continue to do this work. So Isla says 2 questions related, I think. 1, will my Pluto square reduce sooner than normal once it ingresses into Aquarius, because it's a new sign, even though it's by degree it's close? And 2, my Scorpio planets trine the sun, Venus and Mercury in Cancer, moon also there, but squares my Leo ascendant. Do I move out of my Scorpio year on my birthday, as I have 6 more months, or do I have 6 more months of this? Okay, let me think about what that entails here. Think about this. Let me stop share for just a second. And I see that we have a new super sticker from Laura. Thank you so much, my friend. Appreciate you. And I hope I wasn't too harsh on you, Pluto and Leos. You know that I love all of you as well. My dad's a Pluto Leo. We're maybe you're just hearing it from like a son's perspective, like someone who has a parent like that. And my dad is actually very unselfish. So I all of those cliches don't necessarily apply to every single person. So take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. So let me find Isla's comment again and see if I can parse it out. Will my Pluto square reduce sooner than normal once it ingresses into Aquarius, because it's a new sign, even though the degrees are close? Yes, I think that you will feel a difference. I do. The one thing that I am a little bit, that I almost have questions about with outer planets and squares and things of that nature is the aspect theory. Now here we're going to get really we're going to get really experimental here. The aspect theory for planets speaks about a planet being able to witness one another, like literally see one another. The outer planets are not visible except for with very powerful telescopes. So I wonder even if we could even ascribe the same type of aspectual relationships with the outer planets that we do with the traditional planets. Something to think about and to meditate on. But what I will say is that if we are using whole sign houses and whole sign aspects, generally when a planet moves into a new house or a new sign, that relationship starts to shift. If it's going from a square to a trine, the conversation immediately becomes different. So yes, I do think that it doesn't mean that the themes that you've been dealing with for the past few years with the Pluto square are going to just automatically evaporate. I mean, but it does mean that there might be a more harmonious conversation between those two planets if we can ascribe the same aspectual relationship, which I like to ask the hard questions here on this channel. So I hope that's helpful. And for your second question, my Scorpio planets trine the Sun and Mercury in Cancer, Moon there. Do I, but squares my Leo ascendant. Do I move out of Scorpio year on my birthday as I have 6 more months, or do I have 6 more months of this? So if you're a Leo rising, Scorpio year would be your 4th house perfection year, if I'm thinking about this correctly. And annual perfections do switch over on your birthday. So they do not change over at the new year. Okay, they change over at your birthday. So if your birthday is coming, the Sun, wait, hold on a second. Scorpio, Sun, Venus, Mercury, and Cancer. So yes, like if you turned however many years old and started your Scorpio year in Cancer season, or Scorpio season, then you don't have 6 more months of this. You have 12 more. So buckle up, depending on when your birthday was. So you'll get through it. It's fine. Just track the movement of Mars for the next year. And I think if you are a Scorpio Sun, the good news is that I think that you will just miss Mars moving retrograde and opposing Pluto in early December of next year or late November, potentially. So you will get relief right when Mars will be in its most difficult spot. So that's good news. And you can thank your lucky stars for that, friend. Luna Storm is here. Luna Storm 23 says, hello, Luna Storm. I'm getting ready for torrential rains coming this way and recovering from disappointing Seahawks games of late. Oh, sorry there, Luna Storm. I have to admit, I was rooting for the Cowboys. The Seahawks are in competition with the Packers for that last playoff spot, bud. So, sorry, but I understand the disappointment. And what I will say, Luna Storm, is those throwback uniforms were absolute fire. You all should keep those 80s Seahawks unis because they are clean and crisp. I love them. They looked good on TV last night. So lobby your owner or whatever to keep those old unis. The Steve Largent unis, the Brian Bosworth unis. Come on, you know what I'm talking about. Rick Meyer era uniforms. They're clean. They look good. This like neon green, I don't know about all that. I like those old throwback uniforms. Melissa is commenting on my Pluto square saying, that's awful, Spencer, but great to hear that you have your daughter between all of this. Yeah, it was a challenging experience, but we grew from it, and I have a pretty good relationship with my daughter, and she has healed some of the challenges from that transition, I think, too. And I won't speak too much about her own personal experience, but we all learned a lot about each other during those times. And she's doing good. She's in college and wants to be a librarian. So that's great. And I love her a bunch. Michelle says, so interesting how different Pluto in the first can show up for peeps. Humbled me beyond belief. Yeah. I mean, I saw this with my partner too, with Pluto in the first house. She went through enormous changes personally with her body, with her relationship with, like, you know, her body in general. And she I don't know, I don't want to get too far into the weeds here, but she made a lot of changes in her life that were very, very healthy. And I think that she has a lot more energy and is a much healthier person now than at the beginning of it, and super proud of her for going through uh, the dark night of the soul, so to speak, with that too. Julene says, well, I agree that Pluto in Leo persons are, I agree on that, Pluto in Leo persons, and there are some other things at play for that one. Oy vey. Are you a Pluto in Leo, Jolene? I'm sorry, I don't mean to date you, but maybe there's, like I said, friends, we all have Pluto somewhere. So just because you're not a Pluto in Leo does not mean that you don't have some part of your life that you've either ignored, repressed, or that can become corrupt easily with activation. So again, it's good to own our own challenges and work on them without demonizing others. It's super important. I think it is important to be critical of cross-generational differences and to try to improve upon the blind spots of previous generations. But to just like dismiss them and cast them aside and make them evil, that's not productive. Like that, because again, is that how you want to be treated when you're entering your own elderhood? That's not how I want to be treated. So I think that just compassion is a great way to lead. Yeah, Julene says, bottom line, do your own shadow work and you'll be happier, and so will the world. Amen to that, Don. I couldn't have said it better myself. Laura says, I feel fortunate to be at this age and having observing and living my transits for the last 52 years that I've been an astrologer. Pluto square my natal Pluto empowered me the most of any transit. Yeah. And sometimes that power comes through really difficult circumstances. Power is tricky. Power is something that we have to be careful of when we acquire it. And it definitely tests our character one way or the other. Okay, let me see where we're at here. Dawn says, I see you, Laura, about to turn 53 here. It's been a huge growth period for me. Okay, connecting. Astrology has been what's taught me compassion truly. Yes, I agree, Dawn. It's definitely been the most important vehicle for compassion in my life too, as far as just understanding how other people see the world and that it's different than how I see it. And then that's okay, that everyone has their own path. Melissa says, I've done a chart. I did a chart after I lost my beautiful ma'am. Pluto was opposite, not exactly, and it was an eclipse 2 days later. But ma'am went through a lot before we lost our beautiful lady. Yeah. I mean, Pluto exposes things that have been repressed, and it's not always pretty. So it's tough. There's the beauty of astrology is that there are symbols to describe every facet of life, I think, on some level. And if you've lived long enough, you will realize that not every experience is fun or beautiful or enjoyable, and that there's a lot of painful, dirty, messy things in life. And just having language to describe that, I think, is useful and a real gift. And thanks again, Laura, for the super sticker. It says, thank you. Profound insights today as usual. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate you. Devin says, a Scorpio year is a good year to learn how to sharpen knives and hone your personal tools. Yes. Maybe learn to cooking, or, woodworking. I don't know, something like that. Devin is a butcher, so he is an expert on knives. So it's good. Laura says, your Cancer sun is always gentle. Yes, try to be gentle. Am I always gentle? No, but on the channel, I try to be as compassionate and loving as I can, because I don't want to put that negativity out into the world. Do I have negative feelings sometimes? Absolutely. Does the 12th house sun, arrogant bastard, rear his head sometimes? Yes. Does the Leo part of me, who wants to be special, have some pride issues? Absolutely. But I try to self-examine a bit, and I try to do better when I've screwed up. And I try to admit when I'm wrong, which isn't easy for us Leo type folks. But yes, kindness and gentleness. Gentleness doesn't mean being a pushover. Like, I wouldn't consider myself a pushover. I would actually consider myself extraordinarily stubborn. And if I've dug my heels in a certain position, it's very hard to move me off of it. But it is easier to move through the world when you try to understand where other people are coming from, even if you disagree with them. And even if you have negative feelings, even if you have jealousy or shadow issues or something like that, just trying to work through those and own it so that so it doesn't leak out is important. And I try to model that as much as I can here. I fall short of the glory sometimes, folks. So like, I hope that that's, by being vulnerable on this channel, it allows us to be vulnerable as a community. And that is something that I value quite a bit. Steven's here. Hello, made it. Sun in Pisces. Nice to see you, Steven. Devin says, that's a good point about aspect theory, Spencer. We're talking about aspects of traditional planets versus aspects and seeing between outer planets that aren't necessarily visible. Aspect theory is being based on casting rays at each other, which is based on our ability to see the sphere's light. So if we can't see their light, then do they cast rays? Yes. Inquiring minds want to know. I don't have a great answer to that, but it's interesting to think about, isn't it? Devin says Pluto is going to dip its toe back into Capricorn in 2024. Yep, and Mars in Cancer is going to oppose it. I'm lucky enough to have Mars be my Time Lord around that period of time as I experience a 9th house Aries transit. So you will get to witness Mars opposite Pluto with someone who has a Time Lord with Mars in Cancer retrograding, opposing Pluto. So that'll be fun. Hopefully we'll all make it together with all of our integrity intact. Mr. Hindsight's here talking to Jolene, says I've had that experience too. I'm a Pluto and Leo, look and act young, but 84. It's been a long time teaching in high schools. Yeah, there's all sorts of ways to stay young, right? I think that the youthfulness of Leo comes from the vitality and the endurance of the sun. So think about how the sun is sort of almost unchangeable, whereas the moon waxes and wanes. So a lot of Leo folks do have good luck sustaining vitality, staying youthful, staying connected with the source of their vitality, because the sun's energy is everlasting. Relatively speaking, okay, even the sun will burn out, but it's going to take a while. Painted Turtle is here. Says, Spencer, how is your Deccan going? I couldn't join, but I'm hoping it's going well so I can jump in sometime in the future. I think it's going well. I think we have some really amazing folks in the Deccan. I think we have been exploring and sharing our stories. One thing I really like about the Deccan is it's been an experience of collaborative storytelling, which we will go and look at each other's charts and look at the symbolism associated with the Decan, with the tarot card, with the mythology, and then we will try to connect it to our lived experiences. And we've had some really incredible connections and insights. And especially it's useful because not everyone has the same rising sign or the same chart. So we can see each decanic placement lighting up different topics in our life. And that's really useful for seeing the multifaceted way that the decans can be experienced. So I'm really excited about it. I'm really just grateful for the folks that have been participating and their ability to share and be vulnerable. And maybe we'll open up some registration in the near future if you missed out potentially. I'm still kind of on the fence about that. There might be another entry point at one of the cardinal turnings, either Capricorn or Aries. I'm still undecided about that, but I do think that going on that journey again with more folks would be really valuable. Okay. Steven says Pluto and Virgo in the 10th generation X are here, and transiting Pluto and Capricorn in the 2nd house. I made big changes and transformations. Oh, good. Well, I'm glad to hear. You should tell me more, Steven, about the Pluto trine, because I'm about to start moving into that phase of my life with the Pluto trine. I'm kind of looking forward to that. That might be good. Might be good. Julian says, I was commenting on the one particular person you referred to as Pluto in Leo. I'm a Pluto in Virgo. Oh, okay. Sorry, Julian. Like I said, I don't have everyone's Pluto generation memorized yet, and we're all as young as we feel, right? I'm gonna get myself in trouble here. Pluto in Virgo is interesting too, because there is a little bit of dealing with health and health issues and dietary things and how we take care of ourselves. Those are all Pluto and Virgo challenges. And my mom was Pluto and Virgo, or my dad is really late Pluto Leo. And my mom dealt with a lot of health stuff and really had to sort of had the challenges of ill health. And yeah, it's tough. So take good care of yourselves, Pluto in Virgos, and try to do as many things as you can and make as many choices as you can to give yourself the best chance to be healthy. I will never say that it's 100% possible to avert any type of disease or disasters. Sometimes those things just happen and it's nobody's fault, and we're just having to deal with those things. But I do think there are some things we can do to either turn on or off things. We can give ourselves the best chance, and then we have to just pray that the stars will be in our favor. And then if something happens, try to deal with it gracefully, right? Let's see. Thank you, Melissa. I'm just reading through all of your awesome comments here. Melissa says, it's a fabulous gift. Unfortunately, I don't know enough right now. Just keep going, Melissa. I think you're referring to astrology and learning astrology, but just it's one day at a time. We just have to keep doing the best we can with the information that we have and the light that we have at the moment. I don't know everything. I'm still learning, and I think it's a mistake to think that you can't have deep and profound insights at the beginning of your astrological or oracular journeys. What you do have is your own experiences, and if you use the symbols that you're really familiar with, they will speak to you. And I think that that's really important to understand. Yes, we can gain more nuance and the ability to communicate our insights in a more multifaceted way the more we study. But I do think that sometimes we tend to, talk down to ourselves because we aren't as experienced as someone else. That being said, we shouldn't wield techniques that we're not completely comfortable with until we're ready. I think that that's important too, but you got to test things out. So stick with it. Steven says, Saturn will be my Time Lord next year. Work. I'm building stronger foundations. Yes, Saturn is a tough teacher, but it can bring wonderful rewards as well, Steven. Hey, Robin. Robin is here. Stopping in. Welcome, my friend. Steven says, Mars is my Time Lord this year. Well, Steven, hopefully you'll be spared the Mars retrograde and Cancer. Unfortunately, I won't, having that Time Lord, but we'll see. Dawn says, I gotta head out, sending you all love and wishes for a great week and month. Take care, Dawn. All right. Devin says, that's all for the 84 to roughly 94 babies. Okay. Those are Pluto and Scorpios, or what? I'm a little behind the game here. Michelle says, Pluto and Virgo, always have to eat clean and feel my best, but I think my Mars in Leo gives me a lot of vibrancy. Yeah, this, sometimes we all have different journeys. My mom didn't really eat that healthy, to be honest with you. She had a lot of challenges with her diet, and I don't know if it contributed to her health challenges. It's possible. My mom had she got breast cancer, number one, and she had a mastectomy, and a week after her mastectomy, she had a blood clot that went into her brain, and she had an aneurysm and an extreme stroke. So that part of it, I mean, that could just be chance. I mean, I don't know what she could have done about that. But there are parts of my thought about how it could have been different and what could have caused the cancer. And you can go back and forth with this kind of thing. I mean, it could be a number of things. It could be genetics, could be diet, it could be a lot of the environmental factors, cleaning products, chemicals, could be stuff in the water. You just never know. And the way I feel about a lot of those things right now is that we're all kind of fighting upstream and swimming upstream when it comes to that. There's so many environmental factors that are really unhealthy for us as a community, that it's really a much larger issue than just our own personal choices. And it's never okay to demonize people who are suffering and be like, oh, if you'd only made this choice, you wouldn't have gone through this suffering. That's just why put that on someone who's going through a difficult time. The flip side of that is I do think that there are certain personal choices we can make to give ourselves a chance. Eating as clean as we can, trying to move and exercise and stay hydrated, and lowering our stress, and those are all good things. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, and I think that sometimes we have to accept that. Yeah, it's tough. It's complicated. Life's complicated. I wish there was a one size fits all answer to it, but there really isn't. Astrology will teach you that too. Devin says, oh yeah, it's giving more advice to Isla Sky. Yeah, right. Yeah, Isla was wondering if they were gonna get some relief from their Scorpio year, but if you just had a birthday, you just started it. So yeah. Carol says, you are rocking today, Spencer. Oh, thanks, Carol. I'm trying. I'm just in the flow state, just responding to all of your energy and good questions. And I'm feeling Mercury in Capricorn. Feels good. I like it. I've been doing to give myself a chance energetically as I've been tapping all over various points of my body to increase my circulation. I've been trying to eat fairly clean, and get walks. Those are the things that I can do. That's what I feel like is in my control, and then I just have to leave it to the universe to hopefully protect my health moving forward. I do say some prayers to Asclepius. I try to do that too, and give some offerings to Asclepius, who was the kind of the doctor in Greek mythology. And there's an orphicam you can say to Asclepius. I got this wonderful Asclepius oil from our good friends at Sphere and Sundry too, and I use that fairly regularly. I try to take my health pretty seriously, especially having witnessed people have gone through suffering, but I totally understand too that there's only so much that I can do, and I'll just have to take it as it comes. Julian says, same here, eating clean and the value of exercise. Mars conjunct Pluto, exercise is a big deal for me. Totally. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, there are things that you can do to improve your health that you can do and have personal responsibility with. But what I would caution against is to look down on other people who can't, or who have had health challenges, and be like, if only you ate better and exercised more, you wouldn't have had this happen to you. And maybe that's true in some cases, but it's not true in every case. So that's where when you're wielding that sword, it's important to like own it for your own sake, but to not apply it to every single person and situation, because when we do that, that's when we can make some mistakes, and when life can really humble us. So just apply that energy, that Virgo energy, to your own self-improvement, but don't necessarily apply that to every other situation or person or people's life, because that's when it becomes corrupt, right? That's when the Pluto part of it becomes corrupt, when we have to feel like we have to improve and self-improve at all costs, right? When we have to keep constantly improving, say, I'm not good enough. Maybe that's the Pluto and Virgo energy, is understanding when enough is enough, when you can just accept who you are and what you are in that moment. That's the alternate energy of Pisces, is accepting yourself and saying, this is enough. I'm enough today. So that might be your cross to bear, Pluto and Virgos, is understanding when you are enough without having to constantly improve, something to think about. Okay. Stephen has gone to a great store and bought some great essential oils. Good. Devin says the range of Pluto and Scorpio, 84 to 94, only has a 10-year transit through that sign, so it's a small generation. That's interesting. Because of Pluto's orbit, it is in various signs for different lengths of time. So yeah, really, really fascinating to see the length of a generation or a transit, if you want to apply generations to Pluto signs. Michelle is talking to Julian saying, I feel you, and I'm a heavy exerciser as well. Need to feel my best. I don't do it for any other reason than to feel good. I feel like shit if I don't do these things. Yeah. And Michelle says, agreed, Spencer. It's not one size fits all. Been humbled on that old philosophy. Me too. I have a Virgo stellium, Pluto in Virgos, Jupiter, Mars, and Saturn. And younger Spencer was really obsessed with telling everyone and everybody how to be healthy, through diet, through exercise, through whatever. And I was a real asshole about it. I was not a fun dinner guest, if that makes sense. And I've had to really tone all that down. I have been proven wrong quite a bit. I badgered the hell out of my mother and father about being healthy. And what I have learned is that people have to make their own choices and live their own experience. And at the end of the day, if I had any regrets about when my mom was going through her illness, it's that I would have just talk to her more as a human being when she was going through her sickness, rather than trying to heal her, if that makes sense. I would get really frustrated and upset with the type of care that she was receiving at the end of her life. And it was very humbling to, an important realization to realize that no matter what I did, there was nothing that I was going to be able to do about that circumstance. And this is something that's really hard for Virgo types to understand, is it doesn't matter how good you are, how clean you are, how much you've studied. Sometimes there's things that are not in your control. And this is what Neptune in Pisces is going to teach us, and Saturn in Pisces teaches us too. So sometimes we just have to surrender, and that's a tough lesson. So keep doing all the things that make you feel good. There's no shame in that. I do them too. But own it and lead by example, and don't insist that other people follow. Is how I've had to learn this with sort of a Leo Virgo type of thing. Isla Sky says, I'm a Cancer Sun, Moon, and Mercury, and Venus in a Scorpio year. 6 more months with natal Mars can join Saturn in the 4th house with another Pluto square hitting September 24th. Thanks for Devin for the heads up. Fun times. This has been so useful. Thank you, everyone. Newbie here. This has been so useful. Good. Well, I'm happy that you are new here. Hopefully you are subscribed to the channel, Isla Sky, so you know when we're going live again. Make sure you hit that like button. It's wonderful to have you here in our community. Yeah, Michelle says, word, I was so righteous about it. Oh God, I was insufferable. Julene says, Spencer, that's true, and I understand that for sure. My sister lost her battle with breast cancer, and she was a vegetarian and a triathlete, and believed that genetics and environmental issues were, I'm assuming, a factor or something like that. Yeah, and Melissa says, Spencer, you're a human being that worried about your mom. Yeah. Yeah, right? You can do, there's so many examples of people who quote unquote did everything right, and then they still had a challenging disease or condition. You just can never really tell. Sometimes those things are fated. I as an astrologer, sometimes you can just see that those are part of the learning experiences, and I am not going to be arrogant enough to say that we came here to learn through that experience, because who knows why we came here. But I do think that there are different ways to learn about life and to live, and there are different reactions we can have to life. I have experienced what I would consider suffering as a 12th house sun and Mercury, and I choose to try to learn from it. I'm not always successful, but I try to utilize that experience to alleviate, hopefully, others' suffering. I'm not always successful at that either. I've caused suffering in my life. So there are both things that happen. And you just try to be the best person that you can from one day to the next, in my estimation. And that means different things on different days. Tracy says, Asclepius, where did you get the oil? Pluto and Virgo, 2 degrees, trying my sun. Now I really need to put into practice what I know instead of talking about it. Tracy, you can check out Caitlin Kopic's Sphere and Sundry website to find her Asclepius oils. She has a yang version and a yin version. I bought both because I really like that stuff. What I have observed from the way that what celestial energy she was capturing was the moon, I believe, on the fixed star Ras El Heg, which is associated with Asclepius the healer. That's at 22 degrees of Virgo. So I believe that the chart that they used was capturing the energy of the fixed star Ras El Heg. And it's good stuff. I use the yang version almost daily. The yin version can be good for sleeping. I really enjoy their work and am inspired by it. And I think that it's good to support those folks. And there's just so many good magical practitioners out there. And I think it's good to be able to, support as many of those folks as we can, because I think that they're doing good stuff and they're not always appreciated for the work that they're doing. But yeah, the ritual that I do with Asclepius, if you're curious, is I do the Orphic hymn to both Asclepius and Hygeia in the morning. I wear a little bit of the oil, and I offer cypress and sage. Cypress and sage for Asclepius, yeah, because I believe there's a Jupiter element in that election as well. I'm trying to think. I've been using different herbal things lately. I have also heard Denabel Getty oil, and there's a number of different herbs that I use with that too, which is pretty cool stuff. Okay, let's see. Any other questions before we kind of wrap for the day? We've been here a couple hours. We've covered a lot of ground. We've been vulnerable. We have gone over some bit longer term transits, some personal transits. We've shared some stories. We've had some cathartic sharing. Hopefully we didn't overshare too much, but this is kind of the vibe on the channel, is through being vulnerable, hopefully it allows you to feel your feelings. I think this is why a lot of the Cap people like this channel, because I tend to express myself in an emotional way, and hopefully that gives you permission to feel your feelings as well. So that, I think, is what I have for you today. If you want to slip a last minute question in, you can, but do me a huge favor. Please like the channel, or like this video, subscribe to the channel. If you are in need of more personal assistance, please reach out for a reading. You can find me at spencermichaud.com. I do natal readings, I do transit readings, I do tutoring, I do one question oracle things. It is so wonderful getting to connect with each of you individually. It's a little bit different experience than on the channel, even though We are very familiar on this channel, but it is a more intimate and in-depth experience, and we can there's a lot of things that you can do when you're not having to share all those things publicly too, when you have this kind of oracular space that you're creating with the client. So I'd encourage you to take advantage of that if that is something that would be helpful or useful for you. Also, keep in mind that the Decans of Sagittarius is on sale right now. If you want to learn more about the fixed star Ras Al Hag, I talk about it in the Decans of Sagittarius webinar. So check that out. That's 20% off on my website. Devin is confirming Ras Al Hag is at Sagittarius 22 degrees. So I'm glad that I remembered that. And yeah, this has been a wonderful day for you. I didn't pull an I Ching today for you, Devin, but I could pull one today. I just pull it right now if you want. Let's see how we can get through the rest of our day. How about that? What do we need to thrive today? How about that? I have a wonderful, I just do it on an app on my phone called I Ching, YIJING, and I have 10 different interpretations built into the app, which is really cool. So the hexagram I got for you, Devin, is number 64. It says, not yet across. This translates to before completion, before the end, not yet across, before nearly home and dry, bringing order out of confusion, exercising caution and circumspection. There are 3 changing lines, and it's changing to the hexagram number 29, the abyss, darkness, danger, maintaining faith and pushing through the rapids. First line at the 4th place says, and this is a translation from Jack M. Balkin that I really enjoy. Perseverance brings good fortune, regrets vanish. Like thunder, he attacks the demon territory. In 3 years, great realms will be rewarded. So this line suggests that we take decisive action, that we will have to have a long battle with something, but it's worth it and it will pay off in the end. There could be a struggle that we're going through and that there's a lot of things at stake, but you need to marshal your courage and your energy to overcome doubts. So this is really about perseverance in the first line that we're going through. Second line at the 5th place says, perseverance brings good fortune, no remorse. The brilliance of the superior person shines forth. He possesses truth and sincerity, good fortune. So this is a continuation. We read these lines from the bottom up. Okay, so we've got, we're working through the situation. So because of your patience and devotion and determination, you could have achieved some kind of great victory. So this could be a new dawn, a new era. I'm feeling like the energy of Mercury moving into Capricorn is reflecting this. So through our perseverance through today, maybe we're bringing some light out into the world, potentially. And then finally, the line at the top says, he possesses truth and sincerity. He drinks wine and celebrates, no blame. But if he gets his head wet, the one who has truth and sincerity loses it. So this is a warning that if you have success, not to let it go to your head, not to become arrogant with your success, that if you've had a victory, just go about your business. We don't have to rub it in or anything like that. Try not to become careless with your success and your victory. So I guess the final advice today is, if you've worked through a challenging issue with perseverance, just celebrate internally, and try not to get in over your head with it, because you can undo a lot of the good that you've done and achieved through, I guess, gloating about it. So that would be good advice for the rest of the day, is to, we don't need to count our chickens before they hatch, or even directly after the victory, because that could lead to hexagram number 29, which talks about we're entering and venturing into the unknown. The abyss is a hexagram that really cautions us that the experience that we're moving into, we don't have a lot of information about it. So as we move into this weekend, we might be moving into an experience that we really just don't have a lot of information about yet, and we have to be careful and we have to be vigilant. And sometimes when we move into darkness, we need to maintain our faith, because we don't know what could be on the other side. So that's the essence of faith, friends, is being able to continually visualize what we want to happen, to surrender to the process, and to do that even when the circumstances aren't visibly in front of us. And that takes practice. That's why we have spiritual practices, because we have to practice that each day. So friends, that's what I have for you today. Hopefully that will be useful for you on your journey. And we will see you next week with an examination of the new moon in the third decan of Sagittarius. We're going to have a new moon fairly close to that fixed star Ras Al Hag at about 20 degrees of Sagittarius. So maybe it's a good new moon for healing, and we'll break it down and we'll take it through your rising sign next Friday, potentially. Usually it's Fridays, unless there's something that comes up. But yeah, wonderful connecting with all of you today. Thank you for sharing your stories, your vulnerabilities. Thank you for your wisdom. I always love hearing how other people see the transits in the sky as well. It's definitely a collaborative effort, these live streams. And thank you so much for your contributions today and the gifts to the channel. I really appreciate all the super chats and the super stickers. Really, it really does help, and I appreciate you. So again, let's practice our kindness and being kind to one another, and we'll see you the next time. All right, friends, take care. Peace.